And Zombie Reddit, today's story is:
I had to raise my three younger brothers when my parents abandoned us. Their return 10 years later destroyed everything. My life took an unexpected turn when I had to become a father to my three younger brothers at the age of 21. It all started when I had just finished my 2-year degree and was working part-time while I thought about what to do with my life. I didn't have any big plans, I just wanted a stable job, maybe to study some classes when I couldn't save enough to move out of the small apartment I shared with a friend. I thought I had all the time in the world to decide my future. But a phone call changed everything in a way I never would have imagined. My parents called me that day. I should make something clear from the start: they were always different to normal people, but deep down I thought they were good people. They weren't very affectionate, but they were my parents. I trusted that they would at least be responsible with their children. That trust was completely broken during that call. They told me that they had decided to move to another state. Not for work or family, but because they wanted to start over and find themselves, the kind of thing people say during a midlife crisis. They planned to take my younger siblings with them. At the time, Jacob was 10 years old and a sweet but sensitive boy who adored our parents more than anyone. The twins, Joy and Ethan, were only 6. What they really wanted was the freedom to live their own lives, to go out with other people and do whatever they wanted without responsibilities. And in their minds, the perfect solution was for me to take care of everything. After all, I was an adult, wasn't I? According to them, I could take care of my siblings without any problems. At first I thought it was a bad joke. I remember laughing nervously, hoping they would say it was a joke, but the silence on the other end of the phone said it all. They were completely serious. Within weeks, they had packed their things and left just like that. They gave me some temporary guardianship papers that they barely explained to me, along with a small savings account that was supposedly for the children, and that was it. They left our lives with no plans to visit, no promises to keep in touch, nothing. It was as if they had erased their role as parents without a second thought. I felt completely overwhelmed and scared. I knew nothing about raising children, let alone 3. I tried to find another solution. I called social services hoping they could help. I explained the whole situation to them, that I could barely support myself, that I was too young, that I had no resources. I thought they would understand, but when they found out that I was family and that I was technically willing to try, they changed their attitude. They explained to me that the system prefers to keep children with relatives whenever possible. They offered me some resources, they verified that my apartment was safe for the children, and they basically left me alone. I had no other option. To be honest, the first few years were terrible. I went from barely taking care of myself to being a full-time father to 3 children. I worked several jobs, I hardly slept, and I felt like I was constantly failing. The nights were especially difficult. I would lie awake worrying about money, how I was going to manage everything, and whether I was doing the right thing by trying to keep us together. Jacob was very rebellious at first. He was angry with everyone and with me, even though I knew it wasn't my fault. The twins were just confused. They cried before going to sleep, asking why mommy and daddy didn't love them anymore, and I didn't have any answers that wouldn't break their hearts even more. The money my parents left didn't last long. It ran out in a year. By then, I had already learned how expensive it is to raise 3 children. I remember a particularly difficult week when everything seemed to go wrong. The car broke down and I had to desperately figure out how to get the kids to school and get to work myself. Plus, we had almost no food at home and I didn't know how I was going to buy more. In desperation, I had to pawn some personal items that I swore I would never sell just to survive that week. It was humiliating and disheartening, but I had no choice. In order to pay for everything, I started taking any extra work I could find. I cleaned houses, babysat, ran errands for neighbors. I took anything that would give me some extra money. At one point I had 3 different jobs as well as looking after the children. I slept very little, maybe 4 hours a night if I was lucky. My days were an endless routine of work, errands, cooking, cleaning and raising the children. I often felt like I was drowning, but somehow I kept going. Little by little we found our rhythm. The children began to adapt to our new life. Jacob, who was so angry and distant at first, began to calm down. By the time he reached secondary school, he was doing very well at school and even joined the football team. Seeing him on the field, running with such concentration and determination, made me feel so proud that I could hardly contain myself. The twins, Joy and Ethan, grew into curious and lively children. They loved to draw, tell silly jokes and play make-believe for hours on end. Joy said she wanted to be an artist, while Ethan would switch between wanting to be a firefighter, a scientist or a superhero depending on the day. Their energy and imagination were contagious, even when I was completely exhausted. When things settled down a bit, I tried to give them as normal a childhood as possible. I made an effort to be there for everything that was important to them. I went to Jacob's soccer games, clapped enthusiastically at the twins' plays, and stayed up late helping them with homework when they needed it. Birthdays were always special. Even when we didn't have much money, I managed to be creative. I baked homemade cakes, bought second-hand toys or planned fun days out in the park, and seeing their smiles made it all worthwhile. We had many difficult moments, but we also had moments when we laughed until our stomachs hurt or stayed up late talking about anything and everything. It wasn't easy. I had to grow up very fast, faster than anyone should. But the children did too. We became a team, supporting each other when things got tough. They gave me strength on the days I wanted to give up, and I think I gave them stability in a world that had been turned upside down. At the same time, I felt a lot of anger. I loved my siblings with all my heart, but I couldn't ignore the deep resentment I felt towards my parents. They had left all their responsibilities to me without thinking twice. I paid the price for their selfishness in ways they would never understand. My 20s were spent in a whirlwind of taking children to school, meetings with teachers, scraped knees and sleepless nights. University, which had once seemed possible, became a distant dream. Friendships drifted away because I couldn't keep up with the pace of life of people my age. While my friends were partying, traveling and building their careers, I was trying to make ends meet with school lunches, daily expenses and bills. By the time Jacob was at university and the twins were finishing high school, I was exhausted. But I was also proud. We had done it. The children were turning out to be good people despite everything, and I was starting to think about what my life might be like when they were completely independent. I even began to consider going back to studying or finally taking that trip. I felt like I could finally breathe easy. After completely abandoning us for 10 years, they suddenly reappeared as if nothing had happened. Apparently they had found new partners and decided to remarry each other. Yes, you read that right. After all this time, their great journey of self-discovery led them to return to each other. When they showed up, I thought maybe they wanted to make things right, but I was completely wrong. They didn't want to apologize or fix anything. They wanted their family back, as if they could just pick up where they left off. They had this idea that everything would magically return to normal. Their idea of family wasn't about sticking together or making amends. It was about presenting a perfect image of a happy family with their new partners, as if we were part of their shiny new life. When I didn't just accept them back, things got very ugly. And then, just 2 days ago, I got a surprise. They're suing me, seriously. They want legal custody of the children. The twins, who are 16, and Jacob, who is now 20. They filed a lawsuit saying that I had wrongfully taken custody and that they wanted to regain their rights as parents because they are getting married again. They say they are trying to reunite the family, as if I hadn't spent the last 10 years keeping us together on my own. I was furious. I had spent 10 years cleaning up the mess they left behind. I gave up my dreams, my freedom and much more to look after the children they abandoned. Now they wanted to come back into our lives as if nothing had happened. As if I hadn't been the one to raise 3 children when I was just a young man of 21. I didn't understand how they thought they had any legal standing. But apparently they hired a good lawyer who was creating this story that I had basically kidnapped the children. They said they had never agreed to permanently give up their rights and that they were just taking a break when they left. The children, who are now young adults, want nothing to do with them. Jacob has made it very clear how much he despises them for what they did, and the twins remember enough to know that they were abandoned without love. But the lawsuit is real and I'm scared. I don't have the money for a long legal battle. My siblings are on my side, but this isn't just about what's right, it's about what I can afford to defend. Meanwhile, my parents have been causing trouble. They have been contacting relatives, telling their side of the story where I am the bad guy who kept their children from them. Some relatives have contacted me telling me to just forgive and forget, or to let the children decide. It's outrageous. Where were these people when I could barely pay the rent? Where were they when I had to choose between paying for gas or buying school supplies? I'm writing this now because I feel like I'm drowning. It infuriates me to think that the people who abandoned us can come back and legally disrupt our lives after all we've been through. I don't even know where to start or how to handle this. How do you protect the family you built from the people who tried to tear it apart? What should I do? Update 1. It's been a few days since I shared my story, and I'm still processing everything that's going on. First of all, I want to thank everyone who took the time to comment, offer advice and show their support. I'm amazed at how kind strangers can be. Many advised me to hire a lawyer immediately, even if I had to borrow or start a fundraising campaign. I have started looking for family law attorneys who have experience with similar cases. I am also looking for legal aid organizations that can help me. I know it won't be cheap, but I really don't have a choice. Jacob and the twins are very upset about the lawsuit. They have all said they are willing to talk to a lawyer or give their testimony if necessary. It comforts me to know that they are on my side, but it's hard to see them go through this again. It's bringing back all the pain my parents caused. Jacob is especially affected. Although he openly expresses his anger, I can see how much it's costing him. The twins are handling it differently. Joy has been unusually quiet, which is not like her. And Ethan has been concentrating hard on his studies. I think they are each trying to deal with this in their own way, but it is clear that it is affecting them deeply. I have started to collect all the evidence I can. It seems like a never-ending task, but it is necessary. I'm digging up old emails, text messages from my parents, the children's school records and receipts for medical visits and all the other expenses I've paid over the years. I'm organizing everything chronologically, from the moment they left until now. It's exhausting to go through all this, but I hope it will be useful later on. I'm also documenting everything they've been doing lately. They've been posting on all the social networks, spreading a false story about how they just want to reunite our family. And they're presenting me as the villain who kept the children from them. It's very frustrating to see how they distort reality in this way. Some people who don't know the truth are actually believing them. Luckily, some friends and family who know what really happened are confronting them. But it still hurts to see those posts. What really bothers me is how some distant relatives have been contacting me, telling me that I should make things right with my parents. They act like I'm the one who's being stubborn or unreasonable. But where were they when I was doing everything alone, struggling to raise the children? It's so unfair. Now that my parents want to come back, all these people are suddenly concerned about the family unit. One even had the nerve to say that the children could have a better life if I let my parents take care of them. That really hurt. The children don't even want to be around my parents, and they have a good reason. They remember the pain and confusion when they abandoned us. The first court hearing is in 2 weeks and the wait is killing me. I can't stop thinking about it. Every time I imagine facing my parents in court, I feel nauseous. I'm terrified of what might happen. The idea of losing the children, especially after everything we've been through, is too much to bear. They're not just my siblings anymore, they're my family. My parents gave up that role a long time ago. But the legal system is so unpredictable, and that's what really scares me. I have no idea how this is all going to end. On top of that, something happened last night that made everything worse. I got a letter from my parents. It wasn't a legal document, but a handwritten letter, which made it feel more personal. They wrote that they have forgiven me for destroying the family and that they want us to heal together. They said they had changed and were now ready to be the parents we always needed, and, most incredibly, they mentioned that I could continue to be part of the children's lives if I would just forget the past. Reading this made my stomach churn. They act as if it was all just a simple misunderstanding, as if they hadn't left me to deal with the mess they created. Jacob saw the letter before I could put it away and he was completely furious. He tore it to pieces and stormed out of the house. When he returned, he told me he would never forgive them for what they did to us. I completely understand. I haven't shown the letter to the twins yet. Part of me wants to protect them, but I'm torn. Maybe they should know everything that's going on, but I worry it will only upset them more. To make matters worse, a neighbor mentioned that they saw a car similar to my parents parked in front of our house. They didn't come to the door or anything, but the thought that they might be watching us gave me the creeps. I've been checking all the locks every night and I'm thinking about installing security cameras. I know it may seem over the top, but I don't want to take any chances. I'm trying to keep things as normal as possible for the children, although everything feels very different. We cook together, we play board games, anything to distract us from all this. But there is a constant tension in the air. Every time the phone rings or someone knocks on the door, my heart races. The stress is taking its toll on all of us and, honestly, I don't know how much more we can take. I'm doing everything I can, but it never seems enough. How do you fight against something like this? How do you protect the people you love from the people who should have protected them in the first place? If anyone has any advice or has been through something similar, I would really appreciate hearing it. I'm trying to stay strong, but I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. Update 2. A lot has happened since the last update and it has been an emotional roller coaster. The best news is that I have now officially hired a lawyer, which is a great relief. I couldn't have done it without my boyfriend, who helped me pay the initial costs. The lawyer reviewed everything and told me that my parents' arguments don't have much of a legal basis. The fact that they abandoned us and that I've been the one to take care of the children for almost 10 years plays very much in our favor. Although it seems like we have a good case, the whole legal process is still very stressful. And just thinking about seeing them in court makes me sick to my stomach. Jacob and the twins have been amazing throughout this. They each wrote a statement about their experiences and how they feel about our parents. Reading what they wrote was heartbreaking but also very powerful. They basically said that I have been everything to them: mother, father, sister, brother, all rolled into one. It reminded me why I have fought so hard for them all these years. Jacob's statement particularly touched me. He talked about how he used to wait by the window hoping our parents would come back and how he eventually had to accept that they wouldn't. I'm so proud of how strong they've all become, but it hurts that they had to go through all of this. As for my parents, they are the same as ever. My mother has been leaving me several voice messages, each one more dramatic than the last. She cries, saying that she always wanted to be a mother to the twins and Jacob, that she misses them very much and that she doesn't understand why I keep them away from her. It's frustrating to hear her distort the story like that. She acts as if I had pushed them away when they were the ones who abandoned us when things got tough. They have even tried to contact Jacob directly. My parents sent him several messages trying to buy him off. They offered to help with his university expenses, to buy him a car, and said they just wanted the family to be together again. Jacob showed me the messages and he was very angry. He made it clear to me that he wanted nothing to do with them. I told him to delete the messages and block their numbers if he needed to. I'm really proud of how he's handling everything, but I know it's not easy for him. It's too much to process, especially with everything else that's going on. On the plus side, some relatives who have been distant for years have reached out to show their support. It seems that my parents' behavior is getting everyone's attention. An aunt told me she had no idea of all that my parents had done. She offered to write a letter on our behalf telling how my parents practically disappeared and left me to raise the children alone. A cousin shared that my mother once told him she was tired of being a mother and needed to live her life. Knowing that other people see through their act makes me feel less alone, but it's not all easy. My parents have stepped up their social media campaign, posting about how they are struggling to reunite their family and presenting me as the villain. They are making up this story that I kidnapped the children and turned them against their real parents. It's maddening. Some acquaintances have even sent me messages saying things like maybe you should try to work things out for the sake of the children. I try not to let it get to me, but it's hard not to feel attacked. The trial date is fast approaching and I'm doing my best to prepare. My lawyer has been excellent in guiding me through the process, but it's still overwhelming. I keep going over everything in my mind, wondering if there's anything I forgot or could do better. I also started a GoFundMe campaign to help with legal expenses and the response has been incredible. Friends, coworkers and even strangers have donated and shared words of support. It's a reminder that there are good people in the world, even when things seem hopeless. I cling to that hope as we move forward. I'm trying to stay strong for the kids, but there are times when the fear and anger are too intense. I'm doing the best I can, but some days I feel like it's not enough. If anyone has any advice or has been through something similar, I'd love to hear it. Knowing that we are not alone in this fight makes all the difference. Update 3. The court hearing was today and I can finally breathe easy. The result was in our favor. The judge completely rejected my parents' lawsuit, pointing out that their abandonment and lack of involvement over the last 10 years made their claims totally unjustified. My lawyer did an excellent job explaining that their sudden desire to obtain custody was not really for the children's well-being, but for their own image. Fortunately, the judge agreed and described her behavior over the years as a clear pattern of neglect. Hearing that verdict felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Although I have to admit that the whole process left me emotionally drained. After the ruling, as we were leaving the courtroom, my parents tried to approach us in the hallway. Then something happened that I never expected. Jacob stepped forward and told them what he thought in a way that I didn't think he had in him. He told them how they abandoned us during the most difficult years of our lives, how they left all the responsibilities on my shoulders, and now they were acting like they were the victims. And then he said something that left them speechless. He told them that my boyfriend had been more of a father to him and the twins than they ever were. I couldn't believe it. I was amazed, but also incredibly proud of him. Seeing Jacob stand up for himself, stand up for all of us, and say everything that I had kept inside for years was a very powerful moment. They didn't argue or respond. They just stood there, frozen. As we left, on the way to the car, Jacob told me he had never felt so proud of himself, and honestly, I couldn't agree more. The twins were quiet on the drive home, but they were both holding my hands tightly, as if they needed to feel connected. I think we all did. For the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid of the future. This battle is finally over, and now we can look forward instead of always being on the lookout for what might happen. It feels like we can finally get on with our lives. When we got home, we sat down together to talk about what we wanted for the future. For so long, we've just been trying to survive from day to day, but now we can really think about what we want. Jacob talked about getting more involved at the university. He's thinking about joining a mentoring program and maybe applying for some leadership roles. The twins are doing much better and are concentrating on their studies. As for me, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. I've been so focused on surviving for the past 10 years that I never had time to think about my own goals. Maybe I'll go back to studying some classes or look for a job that will make me feel more fulfilled. My boyfriend, who has been supporting me unconditionally throughout all this, suggested that we plan a family trip for next summer. He wants us to celebrate the end of this difficult chapter with something fun and cheerful. Just thinking about it feels strange. I'm not used to the idea of having room for joy, but I'm starting to believe that we deserve to be happy. Of course, not everything is perfect. My parents are still posting on social media, trying to present the court's decision as a misunderstanding. They are acting like victims, saying they just wanted to reconnect with their children and presenting me as the person who prevented the family from being united. Some distant relatives still believe them and send me messages about how family is the most important thing and that I should forgive and forget, but I've learned to ignore them. The people who really matter, my siblings, close friends and the family members who support us, know the truth, and that's enough for me. After the hearing, I sat down to organize all the documents, evidence and notes we used for the case. I don't think we'll have another legal battle, but having everything in order gives me peace of mind. It's strange to review all this, the emails, receipts, school records. It's like a painful reminder of everything we've been through, but also proof of how strong we are. I can't change what happened, but I'm determined to make sure our future is better. When I think about it all, I feel many mixed emotions: relief, sadness and hope. I don't think my parents will ever truly understand the damage they caused, but I've realized that it's not my responsibility to make them understand. That's their problem, not mine. The important thing now is to focus on the people who stayed, who cared and who fought alongside me throughout all of this. I am also very grateful for all the support we have received. Friends, family and even strangers on the internet reached out to give us encouragement, share advice or simply remind us that we were not alone. It is hard to express how much that meant, especially in the most difficult moments when I felt like I couldn't go on. Knowing that there were people supporting us made all the difference. So now we move forward. I feel excited, nervous, maybe even a little scared, but above all I feel hopeful. For the first time in a long time, I feel like we can build the future we want. To everyone who has followed our story, given advice or simply left words of support, thank you. You have been part of this journey and I will never forget it. Here's to better days for me, my siblings and the little family we have built together.